waiting for my words, seem but never. Buried underground, but I'll keep coming. Lost and never found.
Hey guys, what's up? Oh shit. Fuck. Anyway, welcome back to a Mistah Cookiez production, where your host is the guy who wears the same clothes for the past 10 years. And anyway, let's get all this stuff sorted out. You know what I mean. You know what I'm not liking. You know what I'm not liking, guys. I'm not liking this right here. So let's go into something different. Now, I doubt that you've played Stalker or otherwise heard of it at all. If I had to describe, it's kind of like Fallout on very, very hard and European-made drugs. And no, I'm not talking about those Fallouts, okay? I'm not talking about the Todd Fallouts, alright, man? I'm talking about the old ones. The ones that are really piss hard, you know? And it makes you just kind of want to fucking, you know... Anyway, Stalker is a game based within an alternate reality located inside of the Chernobyl exclusion zone, otherwise known for the rest of this video as just the zone. And if you're looking at this video wondering, A, what the hell is Chernobyl, and B, what does exclusion mean? Then just like, go. Be gone with ye, you know, get them out of here, you know. Actually, a bit of a quick side note here on that bit of an A, what is Chernobyl part, and I'm not plugging here. I really recommend, not saying you have to understand this, but if you are interested in Chernobyl at all and actually know what that means, I would really highly recommend the documentary kind of series called 0 Hour. I believe one of their first episodes was on Chernobyl, and I think it's pretty much like the best video kind of recreation of the events as possible, and kind of it really helps you understand it. And I'm not plugging or anything. It's not a very big series or anything, and it's just one episode. But honestly, it's fucking amazing, and I love it. And it's cool as hell. And if you're interested in history at all, or interested in, you know, reactors going boom boom, then I just really recommend you watch it. You know, it's wonderful. Okay, back to the point. S.T.A.L.K.E.R is a game created by these Ukrainian dudes named GSC Games in 2006, who, if you've never heard of before, I doubt you've played any of their other games. Besides Stalker, they made Cossacks, yeah, and they made Firestarter, which, man, I can't even tell you what the fuck. They made 3 Stalker games so far. The first one being Shadow of Chernobyl, released in 2007, followed by Stalker Clear Sky, which was a prequel released in 2008, and then ending with Call of Pripyat, which was released in 2009. Now, these games are kind of classified as like action, survival, RPG, bit of horror in there. And they take that shit to the grave, even though they're, you know, developed by Vladimir Bumfuck out in Trashcanistan. But, you know, despite that, they're awesome. I love the atmosphere of it. They're dirty, they're gritty, it's not a very nice place, and it's a wonderful world to explore and have a video game set in. For now, I'll just sum it up in the great sense of it's just the disinterest of NPCs. That's my big tagline with a lot of how the world building is just so damn good. But for now, we're going to delve into the first game. Now you might be wondering, why the heck am I going with Clear Sky first instead of the actual first game, which is Shadow of Chernobyl? Well, like I said before, it's a prequel to it. Clear Sky is a prequel to Shadow of Chernobyl, so we're going to be going chronologically through these games, which would put Clear Sky at numero uno for the selection.
Before we get into that, let me explain a couple of things going on with the zone and some of the terminology that we're going to be using through this video.
Okay, so let's go ahead and crank some of these things out. So first of all, the zone. Now the zone is pretty much the exclusion radius around the Chernobyl nuclear power plant that was constructed after the accident in 1986. Everything inside the game world pretty much occurs inside this 50-mile exclusion zone, while everything outside is just kind of like the, real world, alternate stuff here. Everything else is normal out here, right? So next is the anomalies, which are pretty much these big radioactive, I'm gonna kill you things. It's pretty much like a bunch of space phenomena. They're not sentient or anything most of the time, but it's pretty much, they pretty much got like every single element around. So you got electrical ones that'll zap the shit out of you if you step into them, or chemical ones that'll just give you chemical burns, and they're all pretty much radioactive. And you want to avoid them pretty much at all costs. Next is the artifacts. So the artifacts are pretty much tied to the anomalies because you can find a bunch of artifacts within these super radioactive or dangerous anomalies. So the artifacts are pretty much these weird little trinket type things. They can be like weird little meshes of something, or like this one here. This is meant to look kind of like the spike ball from Diary of a Wimpy Kid. The one that Rowley sits on and screams really loudly. And they all also are pretty radioactive, but they're pretty much your perks of the game. You collect these artifacts and they can help you with bleeding, or they can make you run more. It's kind of a weird way to explain it, but just know that you can have these, but you're going to want to counteract it with some anti-radioactive measures. Next is the Stalkers. So what does Stalker stand for? You might be wondering, because it's got the little periods, the S.T.A.L.K.E.R. Yeah, it stands for Scavenger, Trespasser, Adventurer, Looter, Killer, Explorer, Robber. And it's pretty much just everybody who's in the zone illegally. You're not allowed to be within here, within the legal confines of the law, but that doesn't stop most people, considering that it's so goddamn easy to get in here. And also, they're coming mainly for artifacts. I mean, it depends on the person, but a lot of them come for the artifacts, because artifacts you sell to the outside world, a lot of money. Next is the mutants. I shouldn't really have to explain what the hell a mutant is. Imagine any sort of mutated creature. It's pretty much things that want to kill you all the time, and there are multiple different ones. I have very bad drawing renditions here of a Buer and a Snork, and just to see how bad they are, I'll pull up the real-world images to help you see how bad I did this. Next is the emissions, and the emissions are kind of weird, but pretty much what occurs every couple hours, every day or so within the zone, is this big thing called an emission. Pretty much surges out from the center of the zone, thought to be the power plant itself, and pretty much they're giant gravity waves, and 99% of the time they'll just kill people as soon as it hits them. It just absolutely rips them to shreds. If it doesn't, it usually uses them either brain dead or turns them into zombies. So, that's not good. So we got, zone anomalies, I think we've covered everything. Oh fuck, we forgot the factions. Alright, now there's a good chunk of factions within this game, so to keep it short, I'm just going to keep these the descriptions of these factions short, because otherwise I could be here all day talking about. So to start off, we're going to go with Clear Sky, and you might be thinking, wow, that little logo looks like total shit. Well, guess who brought himself some visual aids? This is what the Clear Sky logo looks like. Bit of a close-up, there you go. Pretty much Clear Sky are these militaristic scientists, not involved with the military. They're just, they're scientists that are willing to shoot people, is what I'm trying to say, They're badass scientists, is what I'm saying. They're pretty small, they're pretty secretive as well, and, that's what they do. Their main goal is to focus on the research. Alright, so next up we got the Loners / the Free Stalkers. They go by both names pretty much. And the deal with these guys is that this could be literally absolutely anybody within the game. It's the most neutral dudes to exist. They have different motives. Every single one of them is completely different in most sense. They're just kind of, you know, they're there. They clash the most with the bandits or the military, but you know, they're pretty much like the neutral force within the entire game. And it's just you're not aligned with anybody or anything is pretty much what it's going by. Okay, so next up we've got the old Monolith. And the Monolith are pretty much the big bads of the game. They're the main enemies in most of the entries. And their whole thing about it is that, you know, the religious zealots, they possibly brainwashed, always hostile, probably not conscious people. It's more like a hive mind, kind of. Always hostile, and they control the entirety of Pripyat and the most of the center of the zone. So it's kind of hard to get to the middle of that with all these, you know, wackos running around. Their motivations are kind of went into in the story, but for the most part, they're pretty mysterious, and it's unknown, you know, what really drives them, who totally controls them, and what their main purpose is. Okay, so next up on the chopping block is the old military. And I don't know what to say that can't be inferred already. It's the Ukrainian fucking military, you know. Of course they're here because they want to stop people from getting in because, you know, it's illegal and whatnot, but they do a really bad job of it. They're mostly hostile. They, you know, 95% of the time you are not on the side of the military. And you're obviously blasting them down. And yeah, I really don't know what else to say. They're big. They got helicopters. They shoot a lot of things, and they don't like most people. And it's really not that hard to understand. Just, you know, it's the military, man. What else do you want me to say? Okay, so now we got ourselves an old 2-for-1, and I think I've done absolutely terribly on this one. We got Duty and Freedom. Now, Duty and Freedom, and why I'm putting them together is because they're pretty much rival enemies. They're pretty much, you know, one's, you know, they hate each other, and they're meant to oppose each other. Whoops, wrong way around. Oppose each other at all times. Duty is pretty much militaristic. They use military slang and rankings. And they want to destroy the zone. They want to obliterate the zone, all of its fantastical properties and all the missions. They want to just destroy it and everything inside of it. They're buddied up with the military because they're pretty similar. But to most of everybody else, they're pretty neutral. They're a neutral part in this big puzzle. Now, Freedom, on the other hand, they're pretty much stoners, and I say that very lightly, but they are stoners. They smoke a lot of weed. They're way back as hell. They listen to cool ass tunes, and they're just like, "Hey man, chill," kind of thing, you know. And their goal is to open the zone for free access and to like kind of coexist with it. It's sort of a twofold thing, and Freedoms is probably the weirdest to understand, but they pretty much want to like live in harmony with the zone, man, you know, that kind of thing. They're obviously very laid back, and they are also quite neutral to pretty much everybody else within the zone. Now, where the problem lies, obviously, with these two, is that the goals of Duty and the goals of Freedom, they clash with each other quite a lot. So they're pretty much sworn enemies, and you can find them very commonly fighting big ass turf wars or trying to kill one another or just hating each other in general, kind of thing. So they're pretty much like the troublemakers of the zone, you know. They're out there doing their little shenanigans and getting in everybody else's way, if you get what I mean. Okay, so next on the chopping block, of course, is the ecologists. And the ecologists are scientists. You might be going, wait a minute, we already had scientists with the Clear Sky guys. Now these guys are different, all right? These guys are different bunches. The ecologists are pretty much government-funded scientists. They are allied with the military. They're allied with pretty much everyone because they don't clash on anything. They're really, it's just a government program. The scientists are here to research the zone. That's what they want, is researching. And 90% of the time, they don't actually go out and get the samples they need or fight stuff. They like hire people to do it. You know, they hire adventurers or explorers to go out and get the samples they need. There are some ecologists, dedicated guards, but for the most part, it's just scientists in bunkers doing research and all this and trying to understand what's happening with the zone. They're also neutral in. Actually, no, they're more than neutral. I don't even know why I put neutral there. They're friendly. You know, they're friendly. They'll sell you supplies. They're, you know, they're there to assist you as long as you get them the research samples they need and help them with the projects that they want. And you know, they're just hanging out. You know, hanging out, researching, drinking some vodka or whatever. You know, that's how the ecologists seem to operate, I guess. Okay, next on the list is the old mercenaries. And now you must be wondering, what do the mercenaries do? They're mercenaries. It's really not that hard to figure out what the mercenaries do. They're pretty much just mercs that are hired for various different reasons, or there for also various different reasons. They're kind of not really a faction. It's more like a bunch of separate little groups. They're sort of organized. You know, they kind of like that they're all doing merc stuff, but for the most part, it's pretty much just a bunch of separate independent groups. Motivations vary. You know, it's different depending on each and every group. They're mostly hostile. Most of the ones you encounter don't like you for one reason or another. You know, maybe their job is to not like you. Maybe their job is to, you know, just not let anybody through, sort of thing. And employer, also unknown. They're kind of like an allegory for the outside world, pretty much. It's like the whole reason they're there is for like allegory of, you know, foreign countries meddling in the affairs of the zone, sort of thing. So, you know, they're there. Maybe they get artifacts, maybe they don't. Who knows, you know? Alright, so now we get into the bandits. And I know I'm using a lot of transitional words, but I swear we're almost at the end. The bandits here, what do I need to say? If you've played any video game ever, you know what the hell a bandit is. Bad guy. Pretty widespread amongst the game. They're pretty much all over the place. And they got their own little groups and whatnot. And they're mostly hostile. And I know that might be a little bit confusing because you're like, it's bandits, you know, you kill bandits. Well, mostly hostile because there is some cases where they won't shoot you on sight, but that's mostly just to rob you or do something else for you, or, you know, you're interacting with them in some different capacity. It's kind of weird. Here's the deal. Bandits are bad guys. And if you don't know what a bandit is, open a textbook or something, man. A bandit, it's got a skull as the icon, for Christ's sake. You know, a skull is not a very nice thing most of the time, and it's usually means death. So, bandits, they're bandits. I don't really know what else to say. You know, they're bandits. They rob, they steal, they kill, they loot. That sort of deal, you know. And they're not very good people, you know. I'm going to tell you. And last but not least, we have ourselves the the Renegades. Almost got them confused there for a second. I might be wondering, I thought there was only 9 factions in Stalker, if you have any knowledge of Stalker prior to this. That's because the Renegades are technically a faction. Technically. Now I'm going to go a bit into the Clear Sky here about why the Renegades exist, because they are in theory and in practice just diet bandits. Diet Dr. Pepper type bandits. Pretty much the way it works is there's a bandit like friendliness system in Clear Sky, which I'll go more into in the Clear Sky section, but just know this. Renegades are pretty much bandits for when they need bandits. Because not all the bandits in Clear Sky are hostile. So they can't use the bandit faction for when they want bandits. If you're friendly with the bandits kind of thing, right? So instead they just use these guys called the Renegades. And they appear at the start of the game kind of near the end, and that's about it. They're pretty much diet bandits, and everything about them is this. It's pretty much they're pretty much just like a smaller cell of the bandits. It's just that they're really hostile and want to kill you all the time. There's really no way to make friends with them. They've also got this kind of sick logo with like a scorpion thing on it that I spent way too much time trying to recreate here. And that's about it. That's about it for the Renegades and for the rest of the factions. Renegades, really small, don't matter at all, really. They're pretty much just bandits. So with all of those factions, out of the way now, we got them all out of the way, let's get moving. Alright, so Clear Sky opens with this dude named S.T.A.L.K.E.R, who we see here. He's a mercenary and is the guy that we are going to be playing as for the rest of the game. The year's 2011, and clearly Brink hasn't hit this region of the world yet, because it looks fucking terrible. Even worse is these ecologists. S.T.A.L.K.E.R is escorting through the swampy kind of bumfuck area of the zone. But all of a sudden, a big old mission occurs and pretty much blasts the group back to the Stone Age, apparently killing the whole ecologist group and knocking S.T.A.L.K.E.R unconscious. Next thing, we're waking up within a big old wooden shack in the swamp with the leaders of Clear Sky, the guy named Beanpolev and Lebedev, who's like the bald one, standing over us, wondering how the hell we survived the mission. Lebedev greets S.T.A.L.K.E.R as he wakes and gives him the skinny, pretty much telling him the scientists are dead and sending him over to meet with a barman named Cold. Upon sauntering over to this fine gentleman named Cold, he lets us know about the history of Clear Sky and its founding before we are quickly called back over to the leaders. Lebedev pretty much just says that Clear Sky has been getting hammered by renegades around the area, and how the emissions like the ones that blasted S.T.A.L.K.E.R from the center have been getting worse and worse due to something. But before he can finish his thought, a distress call comes in from one of the outposts in the swamps. Lebedev tells S.T.A.L.K.E.R to go pick up some supplies and help out with the sudden attack. Here we arrive to find this dude in the tower being attacked by some hogs, so we climb up and start blasting them. But before anything of substance occurs, we get an emission warning and try to take cover, but it quickly hits the tower and knocks S.T.A.L.K.E.R out once again. After S.T.A.L.K.E.R gets transported back to the Clear Sky base once again, Lebedev arrives to let us know that we have some sort of innate ability to survive these emissions. But he tells us that we shouldn't really test that in theory, because we might die, In addition, he theorizes that the increasing frequency of these emissions is likely because somebody continues to get past what is known as the Brain Scorcher, which protects the road to the center of the zone and therefore keeps most of the stalkers out of Pripyat. Along with this, Lebedev gives us a little backstory and says he knows all this because he was a scientist working in Chernobyl before the explosion. Lebedev says that they should work to stop whoever keeps penetrating into the center of the zone lest the emissions wipe them all out. So after some coaxing, S.T.A.L.K.E.R agrees, and Lebedev tells him to head to Cordon to talk with a traitor named Sidorovich. That is, of course, after he gets S.T.A.L.K.E.R to assist with wiping out all the renegades who have infested the areas of the swamps. So, after S.T.A.L.K.E.R and his pals from the old Clear Sky clean up structures in the swamps of any of them troublesome fellows, S.T.A.L.K.E.R goes through a pass to Cordon, which leads him to an area right next to the old friendly neighborhood military base. Now, quick little side tangent here, but whatever person on the pig farm this game was developed who made the decision to have this be the most main and direct way to progress the game fucking blows, alright? Pretty much you come out of this big field with like direct sight line of the military base, and after walking pretty much any amount of moves forward, they spot you, and an entire machine gun emplacement opens fire on you. I honestly have no idea what they intended for the way to go about this, but it pretty much turns into just a big game of running as fast as you can away, and hugging a fence, and maybe spamming the medkit hotkey as quick as you can, because, dude, he just absolutely lasers you.
So finally, after we make our way from the base, we head down the road and reach the old friendly rookie village. Heading inside of a bunker, we talked to who we came here to see, Mr. Sidorovich, who tells us that we need to help him with a couple things if he's gonna, spill the beans. So we blast a couple bandit fools, interrogate a couple of nasty military dudes, and rescue some old nimble guy from captivity and head on back to him. You let Scar know that a member of the group that penetrated into the center named Fang came by looking for some components, which Sidorovich did not have, so he sent the Stalker off to the garbage area to meet with some scavengers who might have had the components. Upon finding the scavengers, it doesn't look good. They're all dead except for one signal, which leads us to a messenger. He tells us that after doing business with Fang, that Fang apparently headed off towards the Dark Valley. So, after trekking through the garbage and making it to the entryway of the Dark Valley, we're stopped by a patrol of Freedom members who tell us that the entire area is under quarantine. So, instead, we head on over to the Freedom base to possibly get some information. So, after arriving at the Freedom base, we choose to do a couple of odd jobs for the various members around, and then finally meet up with the outfit leader of the Freedom Gang. And he says that he's dealing with a traitor in his ranks and lets us know that Fang did pass through, but left out pretty quick. So, being the good Samaritan that we are, we decide to take out the traitor to Freedom. We find him holed up behind a huge gang of mercenaries that he's hired, and eventually we wipe him out and take his PDA. The leader of Freedom gives us a little message and tells us that Fang probably went to a loner encampment within the garbage that he apparently used as a hideout, and gives us directions to his little hideout. So we arrive at the hideout and walk in, inadvertently setting off a trap. It knocks us down, and we see the bandits who actually rigged the place. They take literally all of our shit and leave. And once we wake back up, we still manage to find a PDA inside, which belonged to Fang, and tells us that he and a group of stalkers actually did, in fact, head to the center of the zone. There's some coordinates we sent back to the Clear Sky base before we leave to enact some revenge on those fuckers. Armed with just a pistol that we got from the hideout, we head back to execute the guys. I'd actually been neutral with them at this point in the game, so they just kind of, they just didn't care that I was taking all my stuff back. So instead, I just grabbed all my shit and I left. Anyway, though, we follow the coordinates on the PDA to try and track the location of a place that the group apparently used as some sort of makeshift hideout. I know, another one. But along the way there, we get stopped by some members of duty at their base and are told that the hideout is underground, and apparently in an industrial complex that is infested with dozens of mutants. So, once again, Scar instead decides to mosey his way on down there, cutting through some snorks, rats, and a controller before we finally manage to overload the system in the underground, apparently flooding it and cutting off the source of the mutants before we head inside more to try and track down this little hideout. We find the entrance into the little hideout and head inside, picking up a PDA that has an audio log on it coming from a member within Fang's little group named S.T.A.L.K.E.R. It reveals that apparently the parts that Fang was looking for were for decoders of some kind, and the group is trying to make another trip into the center. Scar gets into contact with Lebedev, who reveals that the traces of signals show that this S.T.A.L.K.E.R guy apparently went into Yantar. So we make our way out from the underground complex and head there ourselves. Taking a stop into the nearby research bunker of the ecologists, we meet with the head doc there named Sakharov. Grilling him for the info, we find out that S.T.A.L.K.E.R did in fact stop by and meet with the doctor, apparently taking a new experimental prototype that can protect the wearer from heavy psi attacks. Psi being like psychological type stuff. The professor offers us another version of this prototype if we can pick up some documents from him. We quickly head out and retrieve the files before handing them in, and apparently the documents reveal that there is a manufactured device that is causing dangerous psi emissions within Yantar. Apparently it's located at the nearby cement factory. The professor sends us out to meet with a group of mercs under the orders of the ecologists to apparently shut this whole thing down. We head out to the factory and meet up with a group of mercs that the professor was talking about. From there, we fight our way through the factory complex and cover the mercs while they turn on a cooling system of some sort, apparently cutting down the psi emissions from the machine heavily, although not actually destroying or turning the whole thing off, just lessening the effects. After we turn it off and get away from all the zombies, we just, haul ass from the factory. Now, as soon as we get out of the area, we get a radio from Sakharov. He tells us that the PDA signal from S.T.A.L.K.E.R is strong and is coming right from the Red Forest, and he tells us to hurry after him. Once Scar crosses over into the Red Forest, Lebedev radios him, letting him know S.T.A.L.K.E.R is close and not to let him get away. And I mean, considering that he's literally right there and we could see him, I mean, yeah, that's a given. Regardless, though, we give chase with S.T.A.L.K.E.R telling us to give it up and leave him alone or else we're gonna die. S.T.A.L.K.E.R heads down this embankment into this sort of a tunnel thing, but before we can follow, we get ambushed by some loners who are under his hire. While we're stuck fighting them, S.T.A.L.K.E.R blows up the tunnel, cutting off the whole path. Lebedev radios us one more time and says that the signal from S.T.A.L.K.E.R is gone. The only way we're going to catch up to him is to cut through Limansk. Only problem is that it's across the raised bridge, and it is prime bandit and Monolithian territory. With that new roadblock in our way, we're sent out to find this guy named Forrester, to try and find a way to get across. Meeting with the guy Forrester, he lets Scar know that there was a group that found a way across, but were lost in some form of temporal anomaly recently. Needing to get them out, we need to transmit coordinates to the group with a power transmitter of some kind. Now get this, right? The most reasonable course of action here, apparently, is to take down an entire goddamn military base just to use the power transmitter. We literally wipe out dozens of soldiers and turn it into basically a makeshift war zone just to get access to it, which we use to finally send the coordinates to the group. They radio Scar back, introducing themselves as Leshy's squad, and thank us for helping them out.
We head on back to the bridge and meet with Lebedev and a group of Clear Sky members. Lebedev informs us that Leshy and his guys are working on the other side to lower the bridge, but we need to cover them. After wiping out a whole goddamn platoon of renegades, we finally managed to cross the bridge, meeting up with the squad and making a plan to head in. From now on in the game, we fight alongside the squads of Clear Sky members as we work our way systematically towards the center. Starting first with crossing under an overpass and heading into... Right after we cross under, we spot some bandits over to the side of a building. One appears to be hurt and holding the other at gunpoint. We decide to help and give his pal a med kit. Although, we always couldn't.
We're advancing. Stay alert, people. Target at 11.
Anyways, we help them out, but before running off, they tell us that there is an ambush set up ahead. Seems the renegades and the monolith in the area have been fighting a nigh turf war within the confines of Limansk, and the entire road ahead is going to be full of bad guys. We push forward through Limansk, fighting through the streets, cutting through buildings, gardens, across the bridges, cutting through alleyways, and just continue to slowly push forward, wiping out renegades and monolith members alike. We face a heavy monolithian stronghold up at the construction site overlooking Limansk, and having been temporarily separated from the rest of the members of the Clear Sky squad, we have to push up to clear it alone.
After getting out of the construction site, we crossed down to the final district of Lemansk. Monolith members seem to have barricaded most of the street with an electrical fence, so we need to climb up and turn it off before we can move on. After getting all that done, we move on with the members of the squad into the abandoned hospital of Amansk, which apparently contains a path that can take us right to the power plant. Now S.T.A.L.K.E.R is in the wing of the hospital. Problem is, it's a literal corridor of death. Monolith fighters lay across both sides of the chasm, with both a sniper and a machine gun nest laid down at the very end. With most of our squad members pinned down at the start, we have to move up alone. Taking out the Monolith guys on both sides, we cut across with covering fire support to make sure we don't get chewed up. We move up and finally get a shot on the sniper, taking him out and allowing our teammates a little breathing room. S.T.A.L.K.E.R helps to cover the members of his squad as they move up, and once they arrive, they finally take out the MG nest. The leader of the squad tells us to move forward while they hold back the enemy. We cross into the next section of the hospital and come face to face with a helicopter, apparently from the military who is scouting the area. They spot us and open fire, so we take them down and move up again. Now in this final section of the ruined hospital, we have to hold off Monolith reinforcements until the rest of our squad comes to our aid. It's a pretty intense section and offers us a little cover, so we really need to rely on the weapon we have acquired up to this point. Regardless, we do manage to hold them back and finally exit the hospital, heading towards the power plant. After exiting, we're right on the outskirts of the power plant. Monolith and Clear Sky members fight all around the area, and Lebedev is here as well. He gets a read on S.T.A.L.K.E.R and we see him. He has some sort of side protection device covering him as he attempts to get into the plant. Lebedev gives us an experimental Gauss rifle of some sorts to take down the protection he has on and allow us to fire upon him. To get close enough, S.T.A.L.K.E.R has to jump through dozens of portals and fight through Monolith guards before he can even get a shot off on S.T.A.L.K.E.R. Eventually, though, we do get a shot and drain S.T.A.L.K.E.'s protection device. But before we can get after him, the ground begins to shake. We watch completely helplessly as the entire plant seems to rupture and shake. The anomalies surrounding the area intensify, and an emission beginning just a couple of meters from us. We can hear Lebedev on the radio in a frantic state, explaining what he can, and being taken aback by how the activity seems to have gotten worse with their interference. As the sky darkens, we hear Lebedev screaming in pain, and the fighting dying down before we can get treated to this cutscene. And then it just cuts to the credits. Pretty bleak, to say the least, but let's unpack what we can. So first with the opening of it, we can hear some sort of wheezing or gasping or crying or something like that, but it shows that these people are all alive. Even though they may look like they're corpses, they do seem to be alive, and the twitching does give us an indication. And all of them seem to be stalkers. Also, the next most obvious thing that you can see is the giant flashing TVs in front of us. Some sort of brainwashing material likely belonging to the monolith. It must be some sort of way to convert captured stalkers into the religious members of the monolith. And lastly, we don't see any of the characters up to this point here. Not Scar, Lebedev, or any of the other important Clear guys in Clear Sky. This leaves their fates completely ambiguous. It's unknown what happens to any of the guys from Clear Sky, and with the emission from the plant most definitely either ripping apart, knocking down, or zombifying all of the people outside the plant, it's safe to say the most likely outcome was not a pretty one. There is one theory on the fate of Scar, but it's one we will go into later in the video. After that whole fiasco, let's get a little to the actual gameplay portion of the game. Now, forewarning, this section is going to be, of course, way shorter than the part about the story itself, of course. Anyway, what's there to talk about, really? It plays like what you would expect. A heavy combat focus with the minor worries about radiation and bleeding and whatnot. If you're hurt, heal it. If you're bleeding, bandage it. If you're hungry, eat, half a goddamn sausage or a piece of crusty bread. If you're suffering from acute radiation poisoning, take anti-radiation drugs. Well, either that or chug like 12 bottles of vodka, because as everyone knows, the easiest and most surefire way to flush radiation from your system is to drink down enough alcohol to put down a goddamn elephant. Besides that, there's about 24 different weapons in the game. Of course, you got what you normally expect. AKs, pistols of varying kinds, hunting shotguns, sniper rifles, SMGs, and whatnot. But then, of course, there's a couple weird ones. Of course, at the end, you might have noticed me talk about a Gauss rifle. This rarely appears even in these games, but is pretty much a medium-ranged rifle that can one-shot most things. It's pretty fantastical in nature, but I mean, what in the zone isn't? Besides that, there's a couple other weird picks. I'm mainly talking about something like the grenade launcher, an odd choice that appears only once we enter into Lemansk, and never, at least to my knowledge, shows up in any of the other games. I also did rush us through the story section pretty quick, in all honesty. If I went more in depth on the points I brought up, we would have been here for easily more than an hour. It's just that deep, but along with the main quest in the game, there's, of course, as any self-toting RPG has, side quests, which we can complete for various people or factions across the game for a reward. Usually money, but sometimes unique weapons, discounts at shops, or just, general reputation rewards. On the point of reputation in the game, there is actually a system that is really only within Clear Sky, and that is the faction war system. It pretty much allows you to ally yourself with whoever you choose, and it can have effects within quests and the story itself. Now, the story's narrative never really changes, but, you're always working with Clear Sky, and never necessarily go against them. But with this system of faction wars, you can totally change how some quests go about it. For example, during the story when Scar was kidnapped, taken down, normally you'd have to go and kill the bandits who took your stuff. But as I said in that section, I was neutral to the bandits at that point, so they were not hostile. Now, in a normal game, most people would probably be enemies of the bandits by now. And trust me, it is really easy to piss off the bandits. Another section that changed for me was the section of assaulting the military base. Now, normally you would be able to meet with a Freedom Squad to help assault the base and take down the transmitter. Unfortunately, at that point, I was actually allied with Duty, so Freedom was pretty pissed at me and did not want to help me out. So, of course, I had to attack the base single-handedly. These changes aren't anything world-breaking, and the system for faction wars is pretty simple, and it's just kind of choosing who to back and just killing the opposing one. But that allowance of choice and the changes it can have on the open world exploration and the story's locations themselves is really nice, and a cool system that I find with exploration can be very cool. Now, all these systems sound pretty cool, right? Huge abundance of new systems and solid gameplay, exploration, in-game storytelling, and struggles between factions that really enthrall you into the world, right? along with a likable faction that you're working for and putting all these resources towards. Now, how could this game possibly mess anything about this wonderful experience up?
Hey, buddy, step right up. Yeah, I said step right up. You want to learn about a system you might not have heard of? Well, of course you do. Everyone wants to learn about random bullet spread. Now, buddy, if you ever played a shooter game, you probably know that in 90% of all those sort of games, you aim down the gun and it fires where you're pointing. But there's a whole bunch of situations where the bullets don't go where you're aiming. Now, sometimes this is an encoded game mechanic, or sometimes it's just a total bug or oversight. For example, something like that raggedy Counter-Strike game, where when you're moving, your bullets fly all over the frickin' place. Now, why they did this when the lore constitutes that these are trained professionals or counter-terrorism units makes no frickin' sense. But I guess for a competitive game, sure, why not? It's on purpose and understood. Right here, we see what the shooting is like with RBS. They're flying all over the place with each shot. Everyone is different and won't ever end up in the same place in a row. Take a look at this quick comparison of RBS versus no RBS. Wow, just a wonderful show. So, obviously, you would think that random bullet spread sucks, right? Just have the gun shoot where you're pointing? Well, sometimes it's added for that random effect. Like with casual games where it's easily brushed off, or sometimes in PvE games where it doesn't affect second precise shooting that can result in life or death for the player. And that's all good and dandy. It's a good thing to see that RBS has a place in all sorts of games, and surely will never be used in a realistic game where every bullet counts, and a single missed shot can be the difference between life or death. And I'm sure no one has ever used this in a game like that before, especially when the gun mechanics build up the foundation of the game itself. Nope, I'm sure that's never happened before. Never, goddamn.
Anyway, yeah, as you could have guessed by that old fiasco, for some god-awful reason, Clear Sky has random bullet spread, which on paper might not sound all that terrible. After all, the bullets fly everywhere regardless, right? Well, when you put that sort of mechanic into a game where 1 to 2 bullets can kill you easily, and hitting headshots is the only thing keeping you from a stony grave, it's not exactly a very fun mechanic. It especially hurts when it messes with such a core integral mechanic in the game. Now, let me be clear really quick that when I say random bullet spread, I don't mean that the bullets don't eventually move. That's really a question of range. Of course, the SMG bullets will move away from where you're aiming if the target is, like, a mile out. But when it happens with something as precise as, like, a sniper rifle, per se, it makes the game just that much more difficult and not in a, that was my fault, I know what I did wrong sort of way. More like the random dice roll on my sniper bullets just killed me sort of way. Besides that huge major gripe, though, it plays just as the one before it did. Artifacts work as your perks, make money from shooting stuff and whatnot, and just crank through the story. Besides that, overall solid game, and one that you could have as little or as much fun as you want with. Let's transition past the mechanics of Clear Sky and move forward into the actual story of the next game. Or, well, I guess, technically the first game, but like, shut up, man. It's the next one chronologically. It takes place in 2012, approximately like a year after the events of Clear Sky. Anyway, this one opens with a cutscene showing us this truck moving along a stormy road. Now, I debated talking about these things during the intro, but I voted against it. Pretty much this thing is called a death truck, and its purpose is pretty unknown. All that we know is that it's used by the Monolith to transport either failed brainwash victims or just straight up bodies out of the zone for some reason. as we can see when we get epic jump scared by this body in the back of the truck. The truck gets hit by some sort of aerial anomaly, some sort of weather one that knocks the truck over and sends it tumbling down the embankment onto the side of the road. Next, we cut to a stalker coming across the wreckage. He looks through the wreckage and actually finds a live stalker amongst the group. After looking him over, he picks the guy up and lugs him off to meet with an old pal. And oh, look who it is, their old pal Sidorovich. He brings the guy in and tells him he got the stalker from the death truck. Sidorovich calls him a blatant liar. Apparently these death trucks crash all the time, but no one is ever alive at the wreckage. Except for now. He says some dumb shit about like God or whatnot.
Bullshit. You're lying. Let the zone take me if I am.
He puts the guy down in the back of Sidorovich's shop and tries to check his pockets. They find a PDA that what he just says, kill the S.T.A.L.K.E.R. Of course, S.T.A.L.K.E.R being the guy we were chasing at the end of Clear Sky. Anyway, the stalker has some sort of muscle spasm and it pretty much grabs the PDA, grabbing it and taking it back before passing out again. They also talked about before how he has something called the Mark, which I believe is the stalker tattoo on his arm, which for some reason is considered rare or just kind of hardly seen. I believe that's apparently a tattoo put on by the Monolith onto either their members or brainwashed victims. And considering how this stalker has amnesia and only the PDA to go by in the game, he's named the Marked One. Anyway, after passing out, the game starts. We wake up as the stalker who was rescued. Sidorovich gives us a little pep talk and tells us we gotta help him and the loners out for rescuing us, apparently. So we go out and meet with a scout named Wolf. From there, Wolf sends us out to rescue a stalker named Nimble from some bandits and also recover a flash drive he has. After doing all that and recovering the drive, we lug it on back to Sidorovich. Right once we give it to him, he starts to plan on how to get through the north. We're located in Cordon at the moment, the same place we got, machine gunned a dozen times in Clear Sky. Sidorovich then sends us to go sneak into the military outpost nearby and steal some documents regarding the Brain Scorcher. For now, though, we head around the area of Cordon and pass by a dangerous tunnel anomaly before Sidorovich radios us, telling us a stalker in the area claims to know something about S.T.A.L.K.E.R. He can tell us. Meeting up with this guy, he gives us the classic, buddy of my brother, or my nephew type shit, and tells us to meet with another fellow who is inside the garbage. So we head to the garbage and head to this complex nearby, helping out some loners in the area with wiping out some enemy bandits, After taking out the majority of them, we traverse the complex and meet with this stalker who knows of S.T.A.L.K.E.R. His name is Mole, and we move with him to get away from the battle occurring at the complex and get to an underground entrance. He tells us to head down and that down there is a hideout that S.T.A.L.K.E.R. and his group used. It is, in fact, the same one we looted in Clear Sky. A PDA in the hideout tells us how a member who we haven't heard of up to this point, named Ghost, apparently went out to find Feng, the person we were attempting to track down at the beginning of Clear Sky before, switching targets to S.T.A.L.K.E.R. Upon fighting through some bad guys and exiting the underground, we managed to end up right inside the military base we were going to sneak into. So we use our, innate sneaking abilities to gun down every single military member in sight and forcefully take the documents of the Brain Scorcher.
I told Barkeep about you. He should talk to duty guys to let you through. I suggest you go see him fast.
We then go back through the garbage and head to the new duty outpost, heading inside and cutting into the aptly named 100 Rads bar to give the documents to a contact named Barkeep. We pass over the documents to the Barkeep, and he gives the Marked One his next task, to locate one of the many hidden labs around the area. This one is named X18 and apparently requires a specific keycard to use. We travel to a new location named Dark Valley, prime bandit territory, picking up a keycard along the way from a stalker, and then upon arriving we help out a duty member with some bandits who have kidnapped his pals. We save one of them and then travel to the nearby bandit base, wiping out all the thugs inside, saving the last member of duty, and grabbing the last keycard we need to access X18. Upon finally getting into the lab, we have to tiptoe around anomalies, snorks, and flying barrels until we can get to the command center. There we find the thing that was, chucking boxes and barrels at us the whole time, a poltergeist of some sort, which tries to disguise itself as an anomaly. But we, blast the shit out of it until it pretty much explodes into a fiery mess. Once taken down, we experience a heavy, shaky feeling and hear a deep ringing before the Marked One passes out and has a vision of some kind.
Still.
Now, to be completely fair, it's kind of a wacky cutscene, to say the least, but we can infer that the hooded figure is apparently S.T.A.L.K.E.R. Besides that, though, it's just kind of a vague vision, and the Mark One, quickly awakes from it. Bad news is that the military is here, apparently sweeping the lab to pick up any documents they can and clear it for use again. So on the way out, we cut them down and then quickly, get the fuck out of Dodge before reinforcements come. Once we get out of the area, we find that the entrance back into garbage is actually blocked. So we have to reroute around through Cordon to get back to the barkeep. Once we hand him the new lab documents, he directs us to Yantar to look into a new lab called X16. To get to the bunker at Yantar, we have to cut through a narrow stretch of industrial complexes and train yards named Wild Territory. Here we run into a gang of hostile mercenaries who are trying to locate something. We cut them down and keep pushing ahead till we hear an argument going on. It appears that the mercs ambushed a group of ecologists and are trying to take some sort of data from them. We get sight of a helicopter appearing, apparently military reinforcements arriving to assist the ecologists. Unfortunately, it only lasts, a couple of seconds in the sky before the mercs just blow it out of existence. We head to the crash site and rescue the ecologist head scientist via way of just, wiping out all the mercenaries that are attacking. From there, we escort the scientist through the rest of Wild Territory before entering into Yantar. We keep going and reach the ecologist bunker. We hit in and ask, the old bud Sakharov about X16 and how to get into it. He lets us know that it's still a heavy psi mission area, but after we take a small trip with a fake out emission and a whiny scientist, he hands us the prototype. Sakharov asks one more favor from us before we head out. He tells us how a scientist on the team and Ghost, the third member from Straw's group, apparently tried to get into the lab before us. We track down the signal still coming from the scientist PDA and find his corpse. An audio recording on his body has the scientist screaming of how Ghost went insane, and the scientist tried to escape on his own, but got caught out by bloodsuckers and zombies just a couple hundred meters from the bunker.
No response from Sakharov. What's going on? Zombies everywhere. I'm running out of ammo.
This is art right here. I'm doing it right now. This is performance art. You guys can understand? This is a living painting that you see. Michelangelo, Leonardo, Da Vinci, they're all dead. I remain. You understand? I remain as a performance artist.
The Marked One makes his way into the complex. Entering X16 and getting inside, he is directed by Sakharov to turn off the psi emission device, preventing travel around the area. We find the device, and cutting through zombies, we work our way up, pulling levers until we reach the top where we can finally shut off the device completely. We get another sort of episode, and pass out once more, being treated to this cutscene.
If this is so important, why didn't you explain what you are going there for? And where did you get this photo from? If you only knew where I've just been and what I saw. One day you'll finish badly, S.T.A.L.K.E.R. Hold on, son. You're going to make it. Where will you go now?
To the north.
Cutscene, we see another one of S.T.A.L.K.E.R's contacts, apparently a guy named Doc, a legendary stalker. He seems to be conversing with S.T.A.L.K.E.R about some sort of mission and helping him heal up. Besides that, though, it's still pretty unclear about the specifics. We wake up from the episode and make our way out of the control area. Down a hall, we encounter a controller and fucking blow him away. He was guarding the body of Ghost. We loot Ghost and find an audio log revealing that the scientist from before was just a coward and ran away, leaving Ghost stranded and alone to encounter the controller. Encounter, he didn't survive. He points towards a possible location of this Dot character, and we move to leave.
We'll know for sure where to find him. Anyway, that's for later. And now I'm all alone. On this stinking underground mission. Vasiliev doesn't count. He's just a burden which I'll have to protect. Vasiliev lost it at the very last moment. And when the door opened, he ran off instead of deactivating the lower consoles. I shouldn't have relied on him. S.T.A.L.K.E.R was right to mistrust those lying dogs. My only chance is to get to the door before the controller.
We head out via this tunnel and then make our way back to the barkeep, delivering the documents we recovered inside the lab. Hand them back in. Barkeep tells us that with the new Psi prototype we have, we should be able to shut down the Brain Scorcher and open a way to the power plant. The marked one then cuts through to the Brain Scorcher, wiping out like hundreds of monolith guards now, and reaches the inside of the device. Successfully shutting off the device, we... who could have guessed? We pass out again! Now, this cutscene is a bit confusing on the first watch, but a quick tangent off. This thing in front of us is called the Wish Granter, and is rumored to be within the remains of the destroyed reactor inside of Chernobyl. It, of course, is able to grant any wish to those who find it, and therefore has built a legendary mythical status. We wake from this third power nap, and mysteriously hear a deep and low voice calling to us. It's baiting us to come to the power plant. We X out of the complex, and instead of going to the power plant, we ignore the voice and head on back to the barkeep. On our way out, Barkeep reveals that with the Brain Scorcher shut down, pretty much every single person is rushing to get to the center of the zone. In addition, the military is ramping up its operations, attempting to send in heavily armed patrols. Still, even with all this exposition, we go the opposite direction and head back through all of the areas. We head back to Corridon and meet with a stalker named Guide, one who was rumored to be the best guide in the zone. He directs us back to S.T.A.L.K.E.R's hiding place, as it might apparently be where Doc has gone.
Hey, S.T.A.L.K.E.R. S.T.A.L.K.E.R, come on, man, wake up. Oh, this better. You had me worried. What the hell are you doing, man? Have you lost your memory or something? You were the one who suggested that we take this precaution. Oh well, at least you're still alive. Look, S.T.A.L.K.E.R, we've got no time, so I need you to listen to me. Everything you have said about the monolith is true. All of it. It is just an illusion manufactured in a lab next to the sarcophagus. And nobody who reached the monolith has ever come back. It looks like they have died there. but anyway, while you're away, I dug up some more info. And basically, there is a decoder to open the door which leads to the monolith controls. And this decoder is hidden in a stash in Pripyat. Now I'm going to give you the coordinates of this stash, and I'm giving you the key to open it. I want you to take the decoder, and I want you to find the door in the sarcophagus. And then you'll know what to do. But it seems that this is the only way of uncovering the zone's real secret. This is the one you have been trying to work out, S.T.A.L.K.E.R.
Yeah, so in case you didn't figure it out already, the marked one is actually S.T.A.L.K.E.R. and has been this entire time. A failed or outlying brainwash victim after being taken unconscious from the battle at the power plant and sent back into the zone with no knowledge of who he is or was. It's a pretty cool twist. And to find the guy we have been chasing this whole time was actually us. In addition, she tells us that the Wish Granter is pretty much a complete and total lie meant to lure stalkers to their deaths. Finally, he lets us know that there is answers to some of our questions in a secret monolithian lab next to the sarcophagus, which is, in the destroyed reactor. And a way to get inside is via decoders located at some sort of stash within Pripyat itself. I also just want to say that I think it's kind of funny that this is like a super serious, revealing cutscene, and his mouth moves like he's a character on Sesame Street.
I don't know why the cabs won't stop. Just leave it to me. Taxi!
We head back to Pripyat through the road up by the Brain Scorcher and meet up with a veteran squad of loners. Together with their help, we push through the streets of Pripyat, eventually stopping in a parking garage where we split up from them to go find our decoders. We find the stash, grab the decoder, and haul ass to the power plant, seeing helicopters above and having a heavy fight with Monolith members outside the power plant before we can get into the sarcophagus. We cut through all the members of the Monolith down there, listening to the deep voice from before, just chanting over and over again in our ears, which becomes really annoying after like 30 seconds. Anyway, though, we find the secret door to the lab and begin the decoding process. Being attacked by the members of the Monolith while we wait for the door to open. We head inside once we get them all down. Inside, S.T.A.L.K.E.R. finds a weird apparition of a scientist. It looks like a ghost and speaks to us, claiming it's a member of a super consciousness experiment named the C Consciousness. It claims to be the creators of the Monolith, a heavy hand in the creation of the zone itself, although not related to the destruction of the power plant back in 1986.
Степаныч, мы снова вышли на мощность в 200 мегаватт.
Очень хорошо. Начинайте испытания.
Но по регламенту начинать испытания я могу только при мощности в 700 мегаватт.
The apparition offers us the choice to join in with this super consciousness project, help to hide the zone from the world, and upkeep the Monolith. We refuse their offer and are suddenly teleported outside. It seems they took this as some sort of negative response, and now we must fight through more Monolith members and jump through a whole bunch of portals.
Mark 1, what the hell?
After getting through the final strengths of the Monolith forces, we jump into one more portal and are sent right to the chamber of the C Consciousness.
I don't know whether I was right or wrong. I guess I'll never know. But I made it. And I guess I should be thankful for that.
S.T.A.L.K.E.R, destroying the sea consciousness experiment, seemingly teleported away from the zone to somewhere fantastical or just somewhere out of the circle. Not heaven or limbo, but somewhere just unaffected by the zone. He's unsure of having made the right choice, but he is happy to have at least made it out alive. And that's it. That's the end. Good ending, alright? Sunshine and rainbows. Well, sort of. It's still a very uncertain ending. There's little answers we uncovered, but we at the very least took out one threat to the safety of the world. Of course, that's not going into the alternate endings. Now, while that is the canon ending, there is about a dozen alternate endings. Ones where we follow the voice of the power plant, go to the wish granter, just generally have a not so fun fate. While most of these end in grisly death or just like dark, foreboding situations, they're cool to see. In fact, here's some of my favorite ones.
I want to be rich.
haven't seen S.T.A.L.K.E.R in a long time. Is he dead already? Although he's hardy as a cat, he should be okay, I think. But well, let's leave this place, pal. Let's have some dinner. I know that you're more interested in that than our old friend.
Now, full disclosure here, this is definitely going to be the shortest section. Besides the whole random bullet spread part of Clear Sky, this is functionally the same thing, if like a little bit less. No intrinsic faction war system, no random bullet spread, and less side quests pretty much make up the whole game. Besides the Radiant quest you get, there is really little to no side content in the whole game, and the mechanics weapon-wise, it's pretty much the same thing. Like, I really don't know what to talk about here. The only gameplay changes that we have are like artifacts spawn more frequently, which does result in the gameplay being a little bit easier than Clear Sky and Call of Pripyat, as well as the fact that there's a couple minor things that weren't in Clear Sky. Like there is an arena that you can fight in, which is pretty cool, but I'm not really going to go into that. It's an arena. You fight in it, you get money. There is a couple silly little Easter eggs in the game. One that I am going to mention is, for instance, when you're in wild territory rescuing the scientists from the Merc group, there's an anomaly-infested tunnel we can find. The whole thing is crawling with electrical fields, but there is a pretty pushed-ahead side quest that makes us go down there for one reason or another. Here, though, we're able to find a Stalker with a familiar face, familiar name, and he's carrying a PDA that we can read. January 12th, 2012. God damn my bosses. Won't leave an old man alone. First Mesa, then some strange town in Russia. And now they send poor little Gordon into the endless Ukrainian plains. Take your Jemmy and have some fun. March 20th, 2012. Made it into the zone. Are there really no bears here? Who am I going to fight? I'm not finding my bearings too well in this place. I had to give my little crowbar away for a can of meat. April 26th, 2012. The blowout has started. The barkeep told me to hide my ass and keep it hidden. I chased some rats out of an abandoned tunnel. I have to wait out the bad weather in here. Now, unless you have a chunk of your brain missing, or, actually go outside, then you can probably recognize that this is meant to be Gordon Freeman from Half-Life. It's honestly one of the few references within these games. It's pretty silly to, first of all, see Gordon actually using words for once, and also the fact that he apparently sold his crowbar for a can of meat. I don't think the developers are trying to, merge universes or anything, but just kind of give a funny little nod. Also, he does carry a unique weapon for those who can find his body. Just kidding, guys. This actually proves the real truth. I was right all along, and Stalker and Half-Life exist in the same universe. Fairgrave was canon all along. Now, remember when I talked about a slight speculation on what happened to Scar, the protagonist from the first game? Well, there is a little game theory that Scar can technically, and maybe, be found in this game. In the middle of Pripyat, there's a monolith base, located within some gym or school. You can find the leader of this group of monolith guys named Sharon. I don't know how to pronounce it. Now, while there really isn't much of substance to this, apparently some people in the community think this could be Scar, having been brainwashed to join the monolith and taking a different name or something. Now, what's the evidence? Well, he uses a Vintar BC, which is the same weapon we see Scar using in the opening cutscene in Clear Sky, and is apparently his preferred choice. Not much to go off of, really, but I personally believe it's plausible. And unless Scar shows up again, somehow, I think it's a decent little theory that can work as a headcanon of some sorts, and provides us at least some closure on the Silent Merc. Now, final point I really got is just the difference between cutscene and gameplay. Obviously, they're not going to line up for word, considering, how old it is, but I love how Sidorovich literally just changes his appearance completely, which, it ain't that hard. Hell, well, even I can do it. Let's go ahead and move on to the final game in the series right now, Call of Pripyat. This one takes place in the same year as Shadow of Chernobyl, just a few months afterwards. We open the game with a big ol' slideshow. A bit of a departure from the crisp cutscenes of the previous game, but whatever, it still works. It pretty much gives us a minor rundown on the whole history of the zone, starting from 1986 to the current day, then lays out the groundwork. We are Major Alexander Degtyarev, a military correspondent who is sent into the zone by the USS, the Security Service of Ukraine, as an undercover stalker to investigate the failure of Operation Fairway, which was the military operation we could see at the end of Shadow. It was the part where the military was making a mad dash to the center of the zone, sending out patrols like swarms within the air. The operation was considered a total failure, with none of the 5 high-tech helicopters or teams of troops having returned successfully. Our objective is to locate the crashed helicopters and investigate what exactly went wrong. We operate in an area we have never been before, north of the power plant. In the past 2 games, we have been to the south of the power plant, but this time we get a little closer and operate in the all-new regions to the north. In addition to investigating the helicopters, our secondary is to check out 3 different marked locations called evacuation locations, or ELs from now on, which is where any military survivors would have hid out had they lived through the crashes or whatnot. Our first stop on this escapade is a place called Skadovsk, a large, rusty ship that now works as the main outpost in Zayden, and is held pretty mutually between a combination of loners and bandits. We talked to the local guy, Beard, who gives us a little info on one crash that's nearby, Stingray 3, and also that no military survivors had shown up there. Apparently, to get up to Stingray 3, we gotta meet with this different dude named Noah, who's apparently just a bundle of joy. Finding and meeting with this obviously very stable man, he leads us up to this anomaly field at a burned out farm. He shows us how there's this portal hidden at the end of the field, and after successfully going through the anomaly field, it sends us right up to where the crash is on this plateau. We head over and check out the crash.
Information on the onboard computer. Okay. So Stingray 3 had engine failure in both engines. What else is there? A map with what look like possible evacuation locations. Positions B2, B28, and B205. Interesting.
So yeah, Degtyarev finds that it crashed due to both engines having failed and finds the map for the evacuation locations which we talked about before. Our next little course of action is investigating the next EL. It leads us to a lab in the area of Jupiter, which is adjacent to Zayden. Inside, we find a little ecologist base. Inside, we actually do find a survivor, a guy named Sokolov, who tells us that he was apparently the co-pilot of Stingray 4. He reveals he was the only one to survive the crash and says the proper evac point is actually the last one, which we haven't got to, which is located inside of the town of Pripyat. So yeah, not the best. Anyway, though, we press on, and our next stop is Stingray 2, located in the middle of an anomaly field, just in the middle of the map. We traverse it and check it out.
Looks like the crew died in midair and the helicopter simply crashed because there was nobody there to fly it. The onboard computer was a little luckier. I wonder if there's anything useful here. Ah, there's something. A map of the area with certain locations marked. That should come in handy.
So yeah, the revelation is that the crew of the helicopter actually died in mid-air, and the helicopter just plummeted down with nobody controlling. You find some more maps inside, but not the same ones as the ones marking the ELs. It's just some random dots. We don't know it yet. On board Skadovsk, when we return next, we find a guy named Pilot, who is actually interested in those maps from Stingray 2. He says they mark a faster route between Zayden and Jupiter. Just something minor. Next up on the chopping block is the crash of Stingray 5. This one, though, was a lot more simple.
All the electronics inside burned out. Even the power cable sheaths melted.
Alright, we're just going through these. On to the next one, which is Stingray 1, located right beyond this huge minefield. No way around. We have to navigate through. And by that, I mean just sprint in and take 20 med kits because there's no actual markers for the mines.
2 bodies. Looks like they died in the crash. Everything of value has been looted and the onboard computer has been wiped clean. But the black box is still intact. Interesting. I reckon a decent technician will be able to extract the information on it and decode it.
Yeah, so the whole crew is dead, and the only thing we recover from the crash is just a simple black box, which, if you're confused, is actually not the TF2 item, but a thing that records flight data. You fucking numbnuts. We give the black box to a technician at Yanov Station. Long story short, Yanov Station is the main outpost of Jupiter, and is held by both duty and freedom in like a stalemate. Anyway, we give it to a technician named Nitro. The data contains radio transmissions from the pilot trying to contact the others with no response. He confirms the evac location to be the one in Pripyat, and that's about it.
Group, this is Stingray 1. The emergency evacuation position is B28. I repeat, B28.
Our final crash to examine is Stingray 4, the one that guy S.T.A.L.K.E.R survived from. It crashed headfirst into a factory in the outskirts of Jupiter. We head inside and go through pretty much a maze of buildings, finding an interesting map for a tunnel heading straight to Pripyat underneath the plant. We take it and push on to the location of the crash.
The electronics are the same here, but the emission protection system is intact. What could have caused this?
We head on back to Mr. Nitro and hand him the documents on the tunnel. He lets us know that he can help with opening the tunnel, but it'll be filled with a gas of some sort. He tells us to find a certain type of respiratory suit and talked with a guy named Zulu nearby about putting together a squad to traverse the tunnel. We head on up to Zulu, a guy in a tower by himself and a former duty member that fell out. We convince him to join up, and then the two get absolutely blasted while rambling and pass out. Upon waking, Dictyre heads out on the lookout for more guys to recruit. The first guy we find pretty easily in the station is a dude named Vano, cheerful and probably the only stalker in these games who ever smiles. He's having a problem with some debt collectors, but after we help him out, he joins up with us easily enough. Next person we recruit is old Sokolov from the Ecologists. He's got to get to the evac point regardless, so after just helping him get a suit, he joins up. One thing I do find weird about not just this, but the previous interaction with Sokolov is that we never actually reveal to him that we are working with the military, which, I don't know, seems kind of weird to me. I don't know why he wouldn't just confide that, but whatever. The final guy we take on is a bit of an anomaly. This guy's name is Strider, the only seen case of a group of Monolith members breaking their brainwashing and being freed. Wandering lost south of the station, after convincing either duty or freedom to take in the lost guys, Strider agrees to join us on our journey. With our gang of misfits fully set, and after acquiring a proper suit ourselves, we head to the factory and open up the tunnel.
There we go. That's better.
Good to go?
Ready? What? I'm always ready. Also, ready. I have a bad feeling about this.
Everyone's ready. Open it up.
Roger. Let's rock.
That's good. Go.
Good luck, boys.
We head through the tunnel, navigating anomalies, fighting off mutants, and eventually Monolith members guarding the entrance to Pripyat. Eventually finding a ladder that apparently will lead us right up into the city, so we ascend.
Put your now.
Don't shoot! I'm Lieutenant Sokolov, co-pilot of Stingray 4. I'm on my way to B-28, the emergency position.
I have information for Kowalski. Take me to him.
You know Kowalski?
Who are you? What's your business with the commander?
I'm Major Dektyrev, USS. I'm here to investigate the failure of Operation Fairway.
USS? What the...
I knew it.
You're a merry gang, ain't you?
What do you think? We're here for fun? Why so trigger happy? Can't you see that we're all friends here? Me and Agent have been through a lot. Trust me on that.
Okay. Follow me.
I'm not going. I have no business with the army. Or the USS.
Hold it.
Let him go, Captain.
We get ambushed by a military squad, forcing Dektyrev to reveal himself and angering Zulu, who's not really happy of having been deceived. The others don't really care that much, though.
And I don't give a rat's ass who's working for who.
Us and our 3 compatriots are escorted to the evac location, a laundromat which now works as the holdout for the majority of the ground force survivors from the operation. We meet with the leader of these guys, Colonel Kowalski. He tells us he's got no idea why the helicopters went down. About half his men have already died, and he noticed an experimental weapon Monolith used, which he guesses might have blasted down those helicopters. He sends us out with a guy named Tarasov, same guy who ambushed us when we got here, and tasks us with taking out some Monolith guys who apparently have this experimental weapon. We take down the members of this Monolith squad and recover the weapon, finding it's actually a Gauss rifle, same type of ones we used in the previous game. Fortunately, though, it's busted and cannot be repaired easily. We start back to the base, but hear some gunfire and find Zulu being attacked at the nearby schoolyard. We help him out, saving his bacon from some snorks. He apologizes for running off and thanks us by giving us his big-ass machine gun. We both head back to the base, where he and Strider say they're going to get Pilot to guide them back to Jupiter and bid us both farewell. We hand the rifle over to Kowalski, but he can't really make heads or tails of it. He asks Dektyrev to find some info on the weapon, but before he can give us the actual quest, he gets a radio call from one of his recon teams. He says they might be in trouble, and so he sends us to assist. We find the whole group dead, with only a map left behind pointing to a local bookstore as a Monolith outpost. Kowalski says he'll send some backup, and we trot over there, meeting up with some of our old pals, Vanon and Sokolov, who tell us that they volunteered, and together, we attack the store. We wipe out the enemies and find some sort of makeshift obelisk, with the Major commenting on strangeness and, it's made of junk and whatnot.
Something strange is going on here. There were loads of Monolith fighters inside the building. They were all in a trance and talking to a pile of trash.
After that little mission, we take a guide back to the Skadovsk, and we meet with a different technician, a guy named Kardan. We ask him about the Gauss rifle. He seems taken aback by seeing it and tells us after a drink that is called, quote, Item 62, which he apparently manufactured back at the Jupiter factory before the zone even happened, letting us know as well that Kardan has a history in the area. In this plant, we find some documents pointing us to a lab named X8 located inside of Pripyat. We take our findings back to Kardan, and he successfully repairs the Gauss rifle and sends us along. Back with Kowalski, we tell him that the Gauss rifles didn't actually cause the helicopters to crash, and let him know about the Lab X8. He seems pretty miffed, kind of having a little hissy fit, and sends us out on another sort of errand to locate one of his sentries, who's missing. We pretty quickly find the missing sentry, screaming and firing wildly into the air. He eventually just turns it on himself, and we find the cause quickly. A controller in the next room over, who we just waste once he walks into the room.
Base, the sentry is dead. He was acting strange and attacked me. I also identified and eliminated a controller in that area.
Copy that, Major. The controller must have taken over the sentry. He was a good guy. That must have been what happened to the recon unit. The controller forced them to attack each other. Anyway, over and out.
Our next mission is investigating the lab. Cutting into an apartment building, we fight off monolith guys, some zombies, and whatnot before powering up an elevator. The way into this lab, X8. We head in, cut down some snorks, and deal with a bunch of beers, including this fucking scary ass one. We pretty much just loot the whole place for documents regarding, like, anything we can, and after grabbing everything we can, we head on outside. After getting out, Kowalski radios the Major, asking to talk in private. Giving him a chit-chat, he says the situation is getting more and more dire, having sent another team, now missing of course, out to find a jammer set up by the monolith in the area, and properly disable it.
We've got no comms with HQ, and the situation just keeps getting worse.
We find part of the missing squad and enter into the school that has the jammer, cutting in and blowing the antenna thing up. We drop down and hear some noises, finding the group's doctor in a cabinet. He was part of the squad but seems to be the only survivor. Side note, why the hell would they send the only doctor they have out to blow up some unknown jammer? Regardless, we head back and chit-chat with Kowalski again. He says he contacted the HQ and that support will be delayed for a while longer. But before we can finish his thought, a soldier pretty much bursts into the room and says they're detecting a moving signal around the area.
The transmission is encrypted, and I haven't been able to crack it yet.
Do you have the coordinates?
Yes, I have the coordinates, but the signal is intermittent, and it's moving.
We're sent out and follow the signal around the area, not seeing anything from the position we're at until Diktyrev finally figures it out.
Don't see anyone.
It's close, and it's moving toward our base.
It's underground.
He's called back immediately to the base to prepare for some sort of surprise attack, boarding themselves up and seeing the signal just getting closer and closer. The person contacts them over the signal, saying he'd like to meet unarmed.
Don't shoot. I'm headed to the main entrance.
Who are you?
My name is S.T.A.L.K.E.R.
You're the Stalker who disabled the Scorcher?
Yes, but my plan didn't work. I came here to speak with your commanders. I have information that will allow the army to take control of the zone and destroy it.
And the mission is starting.
Come, let's talk inside.
Yeah, so turns out it's actually S.T.A.L.K.E.R. He gives us the scoop and tells us the reason the helicopter's crash was actually due to aerial anomalies. The military thought they had mapped the anomalies, but forgot to account that every emission, the positions of these anomaly fields change.
We had a map with the safe air corridor between anomalies, and the helicopters had emission protection systems.
That's odd. You're telling me you haven't noticed that anomalies move around after an emission.
Establishing comms again with the HQ, the USS advisors informed the Major that he was now in command. There is now a rush by the military to organize some sort of evacuation, and helicopters are incoming. They will also extract S.T.A.L.K.E.R. in return for him revealing information. We're in the endgame now. We ready up and move out with the squad of men, including Kowalski, Sokolov, S.T.A.L.K.E.R, Tarasov, the Doctor, and a couple other guys. We head northeast. Our destination is the river port where the helicopters will land to pick us up. Finally, we escape out of the zone. Flying from the zone and the game fading to black, we are treated to the ending cutscene. Backed by what I consider to be one of the best ending slide songs to exist ever, we get a recap of the whole adventure. Now, there's a whole lot that depends on your choices and optional content. I'll go a bit more into that during the next section, but for the canned stuff, we get pretty much this. Degtyaryov is offered a promotion to colonel but refuses, instead opting to be the personal military advisor to the zone after completing his mission. S.T.A.L.K.E.R is pardoned by the military. With his information and knowledge, his findings spark the opening of an institute dedicated to the entire zone, which he becomes the chief scientist of. With the documents of Item 62, or the Gauss Rifle, they are immediately filed under top secret protection, and research for use of the Gauss Rifles within the regular military is apparently under consideration. Now let's go over some more quick and minor ones. The evacuation and resilience of the military survivors pushes stalkers to explore Pripyat. Zulu rejoins duty and becomes a veteran. Vano becomes head of an ecologist merc group with a focus on research. Sokolov leaves out of the military and becomes a civilian pilot. Strider and his group of freed Monolith turn to working as lawful mercs with high skills. Both Nitro and Carden team up and open a workshop in the zone. And Kowalski is attempted to be pinned as the failure reason for the entire operation, but dodges that accusation and he discharges honorably. That was a bit of a mouthful, and we're not even finished yet. Let's see. Beard kicks the bandits off the Skadovsk. The Duty and Freedomers at Yanov come to a truce, and the members join the Lawyers instead. Noah saves some stalkers and pretty much raises like a gang of pseudo-dog guard dogs. College's research crap, and yeah, that's pretty much it for most of the main story stuff. And then roll credits. Also, end credits are pretty cool as hell, and I'm pretty sure I'm able to use these because GSC and the makers of these songs, Firelake, like let people just use this stuff without copyright problems. So I'm gonna put a plug for both these songs, both one in the slideshow and the end credits, because I think they are really, really well made, and I would highly recommend you at least listen to them once. Just check them out. Now, I've actually got quite a bit to go over compared to some of the other sections in this one. So, gameplay-wise, Call of Pripyat is pretty similar to the others, as you would expect. You know, shoot the bad guys and the monster peoples. But where it actually varies in a step that I think makes this my personal favorite Stalker game, and that is in the way that the side quests are actually laid out. Now, like I said for the previous two games, the side quests really just boiled down to Radiant quests for, like, miscellaneous rewards, or, you know, that section in Call of Pripyat with the faction war. But in this game, it goes kind of more down, I want to say, the Bethesda route in a sense, with the quests being actually more structured and linear in a sense, but with varying outcomes. And now I'm going to go into a little tangent. Another one, I know, just bear with me, I swear, before we get to explain how some of those alternate endings go. Yeah, now all that I said in the story part was, for the most part, canon to how it went. At least from what I and the majority of the fandom believe. But even down to the smallest details, a change can drastically alter the way some quests go and how the endings even run down. The most obvious one that I would say is the squad. Now, I mentioned how you were able to recruit the 3 guys in addition to Zulu. Now, that is actually totally and completely optional. In fact, most of the things I went over are. You could just go with Zulu to Pripyat and no one else, or any one of the guys could die actually, pretty easily, I should say, in the tunnel section. Therefore cutting them from the rest of the game and giving them some little section in the end slides, pretty much just mentioning how they died and what their impact was. Another story-heavy example I'd like to go over is the lab and the evac in general. In Lab X8, you can actually fail to collect enough documents to get the quote-unquote good ending. For that section, pretty much just having the government not develop the Gauss weapons and it being, shrouded in mystery. Along with that, the evac could also just go balls up, with everyone from Sokolov to Tarasov to Kowalski just dying. Hell, even Sherlock can get killed in this section. Now, it's honestly more of a challenge to have everyone die than not die, so I'd say it's pretty uncommon, but it gives that little option if you're, just that terrible, I guess. With slides at the end mentioning how the alternative, failed evac actually keeps any stalkers away from Pripyat. The government pins the blame on Kowalski because he's, dead, and Sherlock's knowledge is just straight up, lost forever. Cool little tidbits. Now, back to the main point. These side quests also have their own sections as well, showing differing outcomes. I mentioned some already with places like Skadovsk and Yanov. Those are like canon, or the most likely scenarios, but there is others, such as, Duty or Freedom Alone taking over Yanov, the bandits actually controlling Skadovsk instead of, being bumped off by Beard, the college just losing their funding and pulling out of the zone completely, a bloodsucker lair that is just like a whole other can of worms. I'm not going to go too into that right now, but yeah. This whole cacophony of side quests and slides is a bit confusing, but let me put it in a simpler way if you're still not understanding. In like Fallout New Vegas, you can see a slideshow of all your choices, and it's pretty much the same thing for like Call of Pripyat. At this point, you might be asking, what's the difference between these games? Well, Fallout New Vegas, orange. Call of Pripyat, brown. I rest my case. Now on the actual side quests, there's a pretty decent amount, I'd say. Maybe like 10 to 15 totally unique and varied side quests that are constructed solely to be a side quest. Many of these play like sections of the story would, with that level of polish and care put into these. In addition, there's various kinds of quests. Now, hell, there's this one where you need to solve murders, you find this killer, and then he kills himself. You're like, no way, bro. Like, what the fuck? Also, you get like more rewards, more tangible than just like a weapon, such as like ammo or their meds or like artifacts, I guess. Now, besides these side quests you count upon, there's really like nothing much more to the game, in all honesty. Not many radiants this time around, if like barely any. And besides like the 11 or so achievements you can get. By the way, thanks Steam and the rewards for said achievements. That's pretty much it. It makes for a game that, well, I personally think is the easiest of these games due to like, the rewards and the abundance of stuff you can just get by just doing these quests. Is filled with the options and opportunity that they make this, a more fleshed out and amazing, if not just a little bit goofy game. Now I'm going to finish this section up with a bit more of like a mini section of sorts, I guess. So we're going to call it, section 7.5 on the board. Now this little section is just some miscellaneous stuff I want to talk over before we actually move on. First of all, I'd like to bring up some of the voices lent to this game. Now, this ain't really a Yakuza situation where you get the voices and the English understanding. No, it's either all or nothing. So you either gotta have it fully Ukrainian or fully English. And if you couldn't tell from the cutscenes from like Call of Pripyat, the English version, it's pretty hit or miss. Either it sounds fine and like a regular guy doing an accent, or, it sounds like, So yeah, also these games feature some of the most, like, basic of the basic dudes. And while you can find these guys in just about every single game nowadays, this was before some of their bigger roles, even on, like, television. The fact they all just appear together in this unified, what I like to call the white dude voice actor palette in these games is pretty funny to me, in all honesty. It's not like it's a bad thing. In fact, I'd say it plays to its strengths here. Seeing them nowadays, it's just kind of like, meh. But seeing them in these old-ass titles doing work for this weirdo game studio in Ukraine makes the games feel, I don't know, just better in a way to me.
I said come in. Don't stand there.
Hello, S.T.A.L.K.E.R. I see you have many questions for me. Well, ask them, and then we can...
Now, secondly, I just like to go into some unanswered or ambiguous stuff within the series. The one I want to touch on first is Clear Sky and the faction as a whole. Now, you might have thought that Clear Sky was just, destroyed after the game, totally being wiped clean by that emission. But actually, they have some noted survivors. While we never able to go back to the Great Swamp again because, well, the section of that level is not in like any of the other games, there are some members that actually survived over the games. First one to note is this dude named Novikov. I didn't talk about him before because he was pretty much just like a mechanic and repair dude of Clear Sky, Not that important. By the events of Call of Pripyat, though, we can actually find him working for the ecologists, running the counter in the same bunker that we find Sokolov in. The other member who survived is Nimble. Now, Nimble is, again, a guy who I only sparsely talked about in the Clear Sky and Shadow section, and that's because he has minor roles in the story. In Clear Sky, we can find him in the base working as a rookie for the faction. After destruction, though, he seems to have moved on and become a loner. We save him as part of some of the first quests in Shadow. He doesn't really have any sort of story part for Call of Pripyat, but what he does function as is an expert arms dealer, charging heavy prices for getting some of the rarest and best weapons in the game. Some of them being one of a kind, and others just being super uncommon weapons or armor types such as exoskeletons. Last mystery for now is just what the monolith really is. No concrete answer can't keep us from speculating. From how they're truly produced to how they function, there's a lot of questions to ask about the most mysterious faction in the game. We of course know that in some way the sea consciousness was controlling or at least instructing the monolith. We can tell this from, the fact they're pretty much the source of the monolith members and that we face the heaviest resistance from the battle-hardened cultists. But after the sea consciousness is destroyed, what really happens? The scientists are all dead, so who do these guys receive their instructions from now? I don't want to up and say their goals are just completely aimless. While at times they can just be seen wandering around, they do make concentrated efforts to attack us throughout the game, such as within the tunnel or the evacuation. I want to say some of the preachers are the leaders who carry the group forward, such as this guy who's preaching from a rooftop and the most veteran members. The only thing that brings us into question is to the obelisks we find. The obelisks are a weird case. They aren't made of anything significant, just being trash and garbage from the blown out buildings to make stuff they pray to. The one question is just why? Why do they pray to these garbage piles? Do they commune with the sea consciousness? Probably not, considering, they've been completely destroyed. Maybe like a neural network? I don't think so. They don't appear the smartest and function separately, so it's not like it's a hive mind or anything of the sort. So it just kind of remains an unanswered question. Maybe it's just a religious case, like praying at an altar or in front of a statue. Just they maybe believe that by communing with a little makeshift transmitter they've made, they talk to the remnants or ghosts of the Seacon. It's weird, but it's something that I feel is an interesting question to bring up. It's just another mystery in this dark and brooding series, one which we may never get to just like the others. What happened to S.T.A.L.K.E.R? Who controls the monolith? What is the zone? Whatever happened to Struck at the end of Shadow? All questions we'll probably never have answered.
Where is it? 154 gigabytes. Huh.
Now, originally I was going to have this whole entire section be like all the others, going over the story and whatnot. So, I worked on it, I got about 12 or so hours in the game, recording everything and whatnot, until I realized the game story was about 60 hours alone by itself. And believe me, I think I have a lot to talk about with this game. So, for the sake of time, I'm going to delve a bit into the setup of the story, but not cover the whole entire thing. Believe me, I'd like to, but considering that this video is already about, 2 hours long, I don't feel like slogging through the story as fast as I can just for the sake of this video alone. There's plenty of problems I can talk about with the technical side of this game, but so you all know, my computer is absolute shit. So for most of the gameplay, it will either look, okay, or like it's running on a TI-84 calculator. Now this is definitely a me problem, but it's also kind of universal. I'll explain more at the end. Just kind of bear with me for the start and forgive how terrible the gameplay looks. Okay, anyway, let's go. So the game starts with some doctors talking and whatnot before we cut to the viewpoint of someone in an apartment, finding an artifact in the room. It then kind of sends us to a truck, driving towards the zone, driven by a guy named Herman, which looks a lot like this other guy who was also named Herman in Call of Pripyat. I'm pretty sure they're the same dude, but I don't know. We find who we're following for this game, a guy named Skiff, who found an artifact outside the zone. He was apparently the dude in the apartment who we were following. He's also apparently a veteran from the military and has some sort of unknown backstory that makes him believe the zone is a chance kind of for a new life. Anyway, Herman drops us off and sends us into the zone over this fence with our artifact in this, like, scanner device and directs us to a science bunker nearby. After going through some very funky areas with some very bad frames, we approach the bunker and get inside, finding the science team pretty much all dead. We find some info on a laptop of positions and then get radioed by a dude named Solder. He tells us to use the scanner device we're carrying at these points. So we go from one point to the next, getting false positives till finally getting an actual one at one of the locations. It lights up and does some sort of funky stuff before stopping. Before we can grab it, though, some guys show up from this weird group called the Ward. They're pretty much like these weird police faction dudes belonging to Circa, the group that S.T.A.L.K.E.R is working for in the end of Call of Pripyat. But then we get third-partied by another group. We start shooting at the Ward group. In the chaos, we grab the scanner and run. Not getting that far, though, before being knocked down by some unknown dude, with two more dudes showing up wearing outfits with weirdly monolithic patterns. They tell him to kill us, but instead he just grabs the scanner device and knocks us out. Wow, Stalker 2. Yeah, that was the whole intro section of the game. But just to be thorough, I'm going to go into the story a little bit more. So after that whole fiasco, we wake up with pretty much no gear on us at all. We sit up and kick off this dog into an anomaly, Stalker's watching us and passes us a bolt. After getting out of the anomalies we're stuck between, he introduces himself as Richter and pretty much just is like, hey, what's up? Bye. And it's like, okay. Anyway, blah, blah, you know the stuff. We go to a place nearby called Zalicia and get this little confrontation in the bar. The Ward is coming down the Stalkers due to the deaths of the guys who, ambushed us when we had the scanner last night. After some more stuff, we grab different stuff from a guy who's caught up in all this. Pretty much to make a long story short, we eventually find the Solder guy and do a thing to him.
But not you guys.
And that's where I'm going to stop it. I know this was definitely rushed, but apparently the entire game is just massive. And with choices like we saw there, and how many more there could be, I'm sure there is a lot of different endings or exclusive stuff that just could be experienced. Less of a synopsis and more of a little preview of the game is what I'm going to write this off as. Now, for the game itself, it runs like ass. While I understand that this is mainly because my computer is 8 fucking years old at this point, it's also just that the game was released totally unoptimized. It's so terrible that there's apparently a constant memory leak happening and just a total lack of some graphical options. Besides that, there's dozens of virtual bugs, problems with the AI of the game, missing textures, major pop, and other crap like that, which, sure, makes this a Stalker game for sure. Like, one example I can personally think of that I experienced was these guys out here, who, once an mission started, never actually went inside. So I just came outside and found all of their corpses littered everywhere. Another very prominent example I can think of is the bread jacket. This improperly named jacket of sort, that was just bread. Funnily enough, it was actually better than my current outfit at the start of the game, so I did pretty much the entirety of the first part of the zone only wearing this giant loaf of bread. For the bugs and the poor optimization, if you plan on playing it, I just say wait a while. It's the cycle of games nowadays, and this one is no different in that aspect. I'd say about 6 months or so, it'll probably be perfectly fine, assuming they actually, release the patches. Not for the game itself. When I could actually play it, it felt really damn cool, I'm not gonna lie. It pretty much just feels like the old Stalker with new visuals. Pretty good gunplay, I'd say. Plenty of side missions to partake in, both Radiant and storyline-wise. One thing I like to note is that there's actually an animation for, like, eating and drinking and healing and whatnot, using medkits and bandages, and of course, like, chugging down 20 bottles of vodka. It's kind of a stretch, but I compare it a lot to the game Sons of the Forest, mainly just by how the consumable animations look and are just animated in general. Besides that, they don't really share any similarities besides, both having kind of copious technical issues. I'm not really sure what more to say about the game at this point. I personally have some gripes with it, mainly for the technical problems and kind of the undercooked nature. I feel like even with the delays it's had already, it should have been pushed further, considering the problems, and the fact it didn't even release with multiplayer available, which is apparently coming in a later update. If you want to look at more of just the Stalker 2 gameplay and whatnot, I'm sure you could find a lot of it. It's pretty popular right now, and a lot of different people are getting into the series through the introduction of, Stalker 2 videos. So I'm sure somebody else could explain it way better than I could here. This is more just, a bit of a retrospective on the game itself and what my personal thoughts on it. Even if I'm not able to ever play the game truly on my shitty PC, I'm glad to have supported the studio behind it, and I'm eagerly awaiting how it will develop in the future. Oh, also, you should definitely play this game with the Ukrainian voice acting. The English voice acting just fucking blows. That's all I can say.
Would you have gone in there if I did? That's why.
Here you go. Now hit the road.
Well, ain't you a peach, Stalker?
That's how we're all here in Zalicia. This maniac's gonna drink all my vodka at the street.
If anyone asks, I'm at home and busy.
Anyone at all?
Anyone.
You know how they got you, by the way? The scanners are bugged. Nestor told me. Alright. Now for my part of the deal. One of the attackers is locked up in the underground garage. He's the key. Have a nice chat.
So yeah, that's it really. That's what Stalker as a series kind of is right now. Hopefully Stalker 2 continues to be developed and updated as it's fixed to make a truly amazing experience. The whole world of these games and joy of playing through them again and again are just great. And to see this kind of bum-ass studio making these wonderful games is awesome. Hopefully this video just gives you some interest to play the game for yourselves if you haven't already, or just, take a look back if you have. But I guess in the end, all we can really do is just continue to explore the zone and hope by some miracle we might come out alive.
We'll meet again. Don't know where, don't know when, but I know we'll meet again some sunny day. Keep smiling through, just like you always do, till the blue skies drive the dark clouds far away. So will you please say hello to the folks that I know? Tell them I won't be long. They'll be happy to know that as you saw me go, I was singing this song. We'll meet again. Don't know where, don't know when, but I know we'll meet again some sunny day. We'll meet again. Don't know where, don't know when, but I know we'll meet again some sunny day. Keep smiling through, will you please say hello to the folks that I know? Tell them I won't be long. They'll be happy to know that as you saw me go, I was singing this song. We'll meet again. Don't know where, don't know when, but I know we'll meet again some sunny
Hey again, everybody. Mr. Cookiez back here, and if you made it this far, I just want to say thank you so much for watching this video. This definitely took me the longest amount of time to create, I think, of any video project ever. I believe I started back in the end of June of 2024, and I'm just now kind of finishing it up around December 10th. So yeah, that's a good 5 months, I want to say. You know, it was definitely an experience, and it really tested my limits, I want to say, on making a video of this kind. But again, just thank you so much for watching this video. This is the first I've ever really done this, and I want to say this is probably going to be the longest video on my channel that I've actually put effort in and made kind of cohesive into an actual thing. I don't doubt that there's going to be some problems with it, some issues kind of lined up in there. Maybe it doesn't line up properly, but I'm going to try and troubleshoot all that. So yeah, hopefully it turns out okay, and all that shit. If you haven't seen me before and you just stumbled upon this video and are here watching this, thank you so much. Please give me feedback. Give me feedback. Maybe drop a subscribe and a like. Ding ding. The ding bell thing. But if you're not just a newcomer and you have been watching my stuff, I want to, again, I don't know how many times I can say thank you for watching this video, but thank you for watching this video. Please drop a like or a dislike, depending on if you liked or disliked the video, and so I can help gauge what my viewers actually enjoy to see or not to see. Any comments, any feedback would be appreciated, unless it is saying something along the lines of the G word or the E word or the S word. Please don't say that. I will hate you forever. Where am I going with this? I guess future of the channel and whatnot. I don't want to get too much into it because I don't like putting a bunch of personal stuff onto YouTube and whatnot, but I'm going to be going through some changes in my lifestyle and my current state of living. So either that's going to make it so that I'm making less videos, or probably the same. So if there's a huge gap after this video, then just know that it's that. I'll try and communicate what's going on, again, without spilling too much information. For upcoming video projects. Now, I have a couple ideas in mind that I'm probably not going to go into because I feel like it'd be better just to make them, or just not make them, or put them on hold or whatnot. The one I do want to talk about, unfortunately, I have to say this every fucking video, is Fairgray. As you all know, I made Fairgray Rebirth. I don't even know how long ago now, probably over a year and a half ago now. And I think it was originally a one-off, and then some people wanted me to do a second episode of it, and so that's kind of there. Regardless, on the Fairgray side of things, I'd say don't expect much. As much as I'm sure some people want to see that, honestly, it's just not my forte right now, and I want to move on to different things. I would still be willing to do something like that, and if I run out of video ideas completely, hey, I could always just continue that Fairgray Remaster series, I guess.
But yeah, I think that's all I gotta say, you know. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. Hopefully you might play Stalker now that I yapped on about it for about 2 hours, and all that jargon. What else? Yeah, that's it. Please comment, like, whatever you want to do or not do. I really don't care. I like making YouTube videos, and I'm not trying to do it to I know I'm so righteous in the fact that I'm not doing YouTube videos for money, because guess what? I have like 6 subscribers. But I just like making creative projects and videos in specific. I like fleshing this stuff out and doing it with friends or not friends. Special thanks again to S.T.A.L.K.E.R for providing his voice as the Mr. Interview guy. I'm sure he is going to skip over that part whenever he watches it, because anyway, this has been a Mr. Cookiez production. Thank you for watching this video. I'm going to scoot over here a little bit so I can get the end card things. Probably a little circle. Maybe a video somewhere over here, perhaps. Maybe a little S.T.A.L.K.E.R's commendation down here. I don't know what the hell I'm doing. Anyway, thanks for watching. This has been a Mr. Cookiez video, and have fun, people. Yeah.